Hello and welcome. I'm Theophylline Bozduka, an economist at Asset. Before we start, let me ask a question. Can gender equality drive Africa's economic transformation? It's a debate we've had for years. The truth? It's complicated. It depends on the level of economic transformation, gender equality, and how these two things interact. Asset's latest research, the African Transformation Report and the African Women's Inclusion Index, reveals that with deliberate action from governments and policymakers, gender equality and economic transformation can reinforce each other. When African countries take intentional action on gender equality, their economies grow stronger, more competitive, and more resilient. So today, let's explore why gender inclusion matters for economic transformation, the key findings from Asset's analysis, and most importantly, what we must do now. The good news is Africa has made progress. Between 2011 and 2022, the continent's average gender inclusion score, which measures 4 dimensions: law, leadership, financial inclusion, and economic inclusion, improved from 45.6 to 53.5 out of 100. But here's the challenge. At this pace, African women will wait for full economic and financial inclusion until 2093. Yes, 2093. That's 63 years after AU's African Women's Decade ends. Clearly, progress is too slow. But here's what the research tells us. Countries that take gender-inclusive policy action, like Rwanda and Mozambique, see faster economic progress. Closing the gender productivity gap in agriculture alone could increase Africa's output by 19%. Africa's innovation and export value rise when women participate equally in STEM, manufacturing, and trade. The takeaway: gender inclusion fuels transformation, but only if we are intentional about it. For years, we've talked about empowering women, but empowerment alone is not enough. The real game changer is shared power. Here's why this matters. Women's access to leadership remains low. Only 6 countries score above 80 out of 100 on women's leadership, while 25 remain below average. Legal progress doesn't always mean real change. Africa scores 72 out of 100 in law and legal rights, but weak enforcement means women still struggle with access to land, finance, and fair wages. The solution? Intentional policies that go beyond paper and translate into real opportunities. Some African countries are proving that change is possible. Gabon reformed its legal system, allowing women to own property and work without male approval. Kenya and South Africa expanded digital finance access, significantly increasing women's economic participation. Ethiopia and Cote d'Ivoire are investing in women's businesses and labor market reforms for women. When gender inclusion is a policy priority, economic transformation accelerates. So, where do we go from here? Asset's research highlights 3 critical actions for policy makers, businesses, and leaders. First, we must integrate gender into economic policy. Every policy, whether it's trade, taxation, or investment, must explicitly address and be responsive to gender gaps. Second, we must invest in inclusive financial and economic systems. Women need equal access to credit, technology, and markets. Finally, we must redefine leadership to reflect shared power. Governments and businesses must enforce quotas, mentorship programs, and equal pay policies. Africa's future is not about choosing between gender equality and economic transformation. It's about making intentional choices to ensure both. Gender equality isn't only about fairness, and it isn't only for women. Societies and economies where power is shared benefit everyone: women, men, boys, and girls. The time for shared power is now.